Today I'm going to be comparing the IKKO OH10s to some other IEMs I have. People really wanted to see it compared with the Timeless and maybe the variations. So, yeah. And then I do have one of my favorite IEMs, the C Audio Yume. So, yeah, let's start off with the bass for all of these. So, the Yume has excellent bass control. It digs deep. Yeah, so the bass is really well controlled. It is sub-bass focused, but not overly done. So you do get a good punch without it being too much. So the OH10s on the other hand, the bass goes low, but not as low as the Yume's. So it's really good, but it just doesn't go as low. Yeah, so both of these have sub-bass sounds. There's not much mid-bass I hear. Actually, all of these, they don't have much mid-bass. They're more sub-bass focused, so I do actually prefer that. So it doesn't sound wonky or colored in any way. So yeah, bass is really good, goes low, works well with the mid-range. Don't have any issues with the bass. I just wish it went slightly lower on the OH10. And then the Timeless, the bass is really, really good. It's punchy, fast, hits the lowest sub-bass notes. So I think in terms of resolution, the Timeless is better than the OH10 and the C Audio Yume. Because it goes lower and it's fast and you get the full picture, where the Yume is slightly lacking, or the Yume and the OH10 are slightly lacking in like the lowest registers on certain songs, where I didn't really have a problem with the Timeless. So yeah, that's the bass. And then the Moondrop variation, the bass goes really low. It has like a unique bounciness to the bass where none of these IEMs produce that type of bass. So yeah, that's the bass. In terms of which one has the most bass out of these, I would say, honestly, none of them have like a major bass boost, but the best quality of bass is the variations. But if you want a faster, quicker sounding bass, then I think the Timeless is better. So yeah, that's the bass. Let's talk about the mid-range now. So the mid-range on the variations is slightly thin, like a V shape. So I wish there was slightly more body to the lower mids. So yeah, other than that, instruments sound exceptional, open, airy. It's a very airy sound in these. You get a nice soundstage, really good detail. So yeah. Onto the Timeless. The mid-range is excellent. You do pick up a lot of details, but it is slightly thin, like a planar. So sometimes you do feel a little detached from the music because it sounds, it's very, very resolving, but it's on the analytical side because the mid-range isn't full-bodied, so you do feel like you're disconnected sometimes because of that. But other than that, instruments sound really, really good, lively, well textured. You get the full picture in the mid-range. It's really detailed, and yeah. So the OH10s, let's talk about them now. The mid-range is very full. The mids are excellent. Instrument separation isn't the best, but for the price, I think it's really good. Whenever I'm listening to any instrument, it basically sounds emphasized in a way that sounds enjoyable. So any orchestras or any jazz type of music, like that's large scale, this does a really, really good job of presenting it. It's really grand sounding, full. It does get a little shouty, but I think that's because of the slightly analytical sound. So it is pretty resolving in terms of voices. Like, If the singer is bad, it might sound bad off of these. But yeah, that's a mid-range. So the C Audio Yume, in my opinion, has the most tonally accurate mid-range out of all of these. It's not forward, pushed back. It just sounds raw and engaging. So yeah, and it just sounds the most lifelike, basically, where there's no like grain or added anything. So yeah, that's the mid-range. Let's talk about the treble. So the treble on the Yume's, it doesn't have too much definition, so certain notes will just sound like shrill in a way, like one note. So I wish the treble was slightly better, but yeah, not bad. I would say this one has the most relaxed treble out of all of these. So if you do want a more neutral and relaxed sound, I think the Yume's are the one. And then the OH10s, the treble is really raw. And I do wish it was slightly more refined compared to something like the Variation, where this one's like very airy but not overemphasized. Yeah, so it does hit the highest registers, but it's not as resolving as something like the Timeless. On the Timeless, again, you pick apart more minute details. The soundstage and imaging are excellent. You get a nice sense of where everything's placed. So, yeah. So now let's talk about soundstage and imaging. The Variation has a really wide soundstage. Like, it's very like a speaker room filling. You really can't go wrong with the Variations if you want a very airy sound with good amounts of detail. So yeah, in terms of detail, I would say the Timeless is up there with the Variations. It's just like 10 or 15% behind in terms of the Variations. And then I do think the OH10s has slightly more separation than the C Audio Yume. So basically, you would get the Variations if you wrote like an airy sound, like very airy, refined. I do wish the body of the mid-range was a little more, but other than that, it's really good. And then the Timeless is like the analytical sound. So if you're like, you love resolution, it's still, there's not anything that's so better than it for the price. So yeah, again, both of these have a slightly thin mid-range. And then the OH10s, the detail level is about average, I would say. Slightly better than the Yume, but I do wish there was more micro details. But yeah, other than that, it's not too bad. This one does have like a grand soundstage and imaging somehow, so it's really good. Not quite as good as the 7Hz Timeless, but it's really good and unique. So this one does have like a slightly shoutier vocal than any of these, or more analytical, where the Timeless is more tamed, the Yume is more tamed, and then the Variation, again, is more refined in that area. So yeah, those are my thoughts. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, let me know.